Welcome to The Family with
Josh Arnold, Mr. Money Talk.
Officer Dave.
and me, Andy Brant Bernard. No Tom today, thanks to driving down to Florida. They're about halfway at this point, I think.
No, they're further than that.
Little more?
If they're in Macon, Georgia, they were darn near there.
Well, yeah, so there you go. They'll have one more day of driving to go, and then they will be in Florida.
Yep.
So that'll be exciting. They'll be back Monday for the show and everything. But for now, just the three of us, and I believe Mike Bryant is going to be calling in at some point too. But until then, what's new with you, Josh?
44,000 on the Dow today.
4,000.
44000, new
That's nuts.
all-time high. As I was telling Super Dave, when my daughter was working for the New York Stock Exchange many years ago, she got me a hat when the Dow hit the then high of 15,000. And these hats at that time were given out only to people on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. And Marissa happened to be down on the floor. She worked in corporate communications for the New York Stock Exchange at the time when they were passing out the hats.
Oh, man.
Have you ever done that? Been on the floor yelling out the buys and all that stuff?
I've never been on the floor yelling out the buys and the sells. Now it is done all electronically.
Yeah, do they do that at all anymore?
The
yelling?
place that they're still doing the yelling, I think there's still some live action in Chicago at the Chicago Board of Option Exchange. I think there's one or two pits where there's still live action. And I had been on the floor to watch some of that action, several years ago. And it is kind of exciting. Most of the other stuff is done electronically. And from the time I started in the investment business, which was just a few years ago, till now, there are a lot fewer people on the trading floors.
Well, these days, some of these systems, they're like microsecond reaction times to fluctuations in the market. The market will go up, they will sell in less time than a human can blink. It's insane.
That is true. There is an awful lot of I'll say computerized trading, all set up with certain algorithms. But for longer term investors like myself, some of that does not.
You don't need that for your business,
Mm-hmm.
but the fact that it exists at all is just like kind of crazy.
I mean, there are all kinds of we'll say mechanisms and trading, we'll call it vehicles, instruments that people use to try to capture minute returns. And that is not only professional investors who are trying to capture minute returns and at the same time hedge both upside and on the downside, trying to make money using options and or futures contracts. That's not something that I've done. I do make this little suggestion to people listening, as I do to my clients. On an option trade, you have to get a few things right. You have to get the direction right, either up or down.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have the timing right, because options they can go even a day now. So they have 0-dated options all the way out to several year options, which will trade similar to stocks. You have to pick the stock or index correctly. And having done all of that, make sure that you're not paying too much of a premium to make the trade. And after all that's said and done, you may make some money. And I will say always, the brokerage firm makes money. The broker who handles the trade makes money. And if you do, well, 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
Yep.
So it's a very expensive undertaking.
Is day trading still a thing?
Day trading is still a thing for certain people,
Okay.
and it's actually advanced using some of these zero dated options, meaning you could buy it, and it's just specifically, that option is specifically for today
Okay.
or whatever it is. It's there is no date. You pick your price, and it's probably in pretty small increments. And if the stock or index goes up and you're on the call side, so you buy a call, you'll make money. If the stock goes down and you've bought a call, you've lost money at the end of the day. Or vice versa, if you buy a put betting that the stock is going to go down during the course of the day, you'll make money. If it goes up, you lose money. And there are several other strategies that we'll say some very short-term or day traders that might use these instruments rather than buying and trading stocks.
Okay.
But again, it is expensive to do. And of course, there are people that say, well, geez, you can leverage your bets using options. That is true, because one option equals 100 shares of stock.
Oh, wow.
So for smaller investors who want to trade, you can, we'll say, make some significant leverage bets. Again, that's not something I can do, because over time, for longer dated options, your premium tends to shrink over time. And not for me. Now, there are certain strategies using options that people say, well, these are very conservative, where I actually own the stock. I want to generate some additional income. So I'm going to sell, which is a bearish position. I'm going to sell a call against my stock. And typically that's done at a higher price from where the stock is, with the intent that you're going to limit your upside gain, but in the meantime, you're going to collect some income on that. Problem becomes if the stock exceeds we'll say the date or the strike price, the stock could get called away from you. And the other risk, of course, is if the stock goes down, yes, you've still collected your premium for that, but the value of your stock goes down over time. And there are even some both mutual funds, exchange traded funds, and even closed-end stocks that use this covered call option strategy to generate a lot of income. But if you actually look at their results, yes, they have very high yields, but if you look at their results over any significant period of time, you're constantly losing principal. There's not a lot of upside in that, despite you get a lot of income. And people say, oh, look at the yield on this. And they're using covered call option strategies to generate some excess income. And that also adds, to me, some extra risk. So if I was looking for income, well, actually, but I am not at this point looking for income, but I do have clients who are looking for income. The strategies that I use is not using the covered call options. I don't use bonds or bond funds to generate income. Bonds, as we have said numerous times, can lose value, and bond funds can also lose value. Yes, you get a very nice yield on those. If you're using a bond fund, they'll typically generate a monthly income, which a lot of people like, but they're going to fluctuate based on changes in interest rates, more on the long term than on the short term. And bond funds have not done very well ever since interest rates have gone up, and probably a little bit longer than that. So I'm not putting money into bonds, but I would like, if you're looking for income, there are a lot of dividend paying stocks you can use that will provide incomes that are equal to or greater than what the shorter term bonds are paying. Plus, there's the potential, I emphasize the potential for some capital appreciation over time. And of course, there's a potential for appreciation. There's also potential for depreciation
Right.
at the same time. And that's true whether you have an individual stock or a index fund or exchange traded fund or mutual fund. So dividend paying strategies, work. There are real estate investment trusts that generate some very nice yields. They've tended to move up or down also with interest rates. But given it's some real estate, I am of the belief that real estate values are going to tend to rise over time because rents,
everybody needs land.
well, you need land, you need a place to live.
Right.
And right now, people need places to store data, so they're what are called data centers. I need to.
There we are.
Buy.
Was that Tom calling in?
No, that's my good friend Jeff Etten calling in, wanting to jump up and down on the we'll say on the election and the election result of an upward trending stock market this week.
Okay.
So he wants to say thank you. And
there you
go. Thank you again. But so people do need real estate. So I do like real estate investment trusts to generate that, the dividend paying stocks. I'm not a utility investor, but utilities are also another way to generate some income. And quite frankly, some utilities, not all, but some utilities have seen their prices go up, not only with the potential of interest rates coming down, but also with the need for powering up data centers, because the data centers now need even more power because of the not only the
size
better
of the data they're holding, right?
The size of the data that they're holding, the amount of retrieval used, the increase in power for higher speed chips to power up and get information for generative artificial intelligence.
The amount of data those use is just completely insane. Dwarfs anything ever. The supercomputers of the 90s, 2000s, not even close to what they use these days.
I mean, you're just holding in your hand, enough power or enough, power, speed, data that a computer had in the mid 90s. You can hold that in your hand, hold it up to your ear.
I would say
probably times
the mid,
10.
Yeah,
times 10.
Oh,
I would say the
yeah.
mid 2000s.
Yeah, I'd say a computer from the mid 2000s is probably about on par with the average phone, maybe even less actually.
Exactly.
Yeah, mid 90s computers were still they were like got to read the Excel spreadsheet from a floppy disk for a while.
I had better than that reading. It's
yeah, but you're a multi-billionaire.
Yeah,
exactly. I'm a multi-billionaire.
You just called up Steve Jobs and said, "I need the Josh Arnold 2.9." The 2.8 is too slow at this point for me.
That's it. Okay, let me hit that C prompt here. And the other way that I generate income, other than looking for dividends, getting payouts from the real estate investment trusts, is I've set up with a strategy where I'm investing for growth and then taking off a portion of that to provide income either on a monthly basis, quarterly basis. The strategy is called systematic withdrawal. It's something I learned back in about 1980 from one of my investment heroes, John Templeton. I think there's somebody by the name of Warren Buffett that I think still uses that strategy. Invest for, we'll say, value and growth. In Berkshire Hathaway's case, they don't pay out a dividend. In the case of the Templeton funds, they paid out a small dividend and capital gains. But the idea behind the systematic withdrawal is continue investing long-term and take out a portion of that money on a monthly basis to provide income. And that is a strategy that has worked very, very well. I'll say for a very long period of time. And I've taken out, for my clients, a lot more income than typically would be recommended. But using a portfolio of stocks or stock-related mutual funds rather than a mixed portfolio, 60% stocks, 40% bonds, this strategy has worked well, taking out income, levels, we'll say 7 to 10%. Now, somebody says, well, where do you get those numbers? Well, guess what? The average return, long-term return on the S&P 500 is 10%. So you're just taking out the average return.
That's all right. It was just my foot.
Oh,
I
no,
walk
is
I walk on the bottoms of them. You can have
Okay. Well, I didn't realize your feet were that big. I mean, as tall as you are,
you don't build a bank on a shithouse foundation. Come on.
A good point.
That is true. So the systematic withdrawal has worked very well. For my clients, yes, your principal goes up and down, and as long as you don't take out more than the agreed upon amount, you can do very well over a very long period of time. The people that I started doing that with back in the early 80s are no longer on the, we'll say, the sun side of the grass, so to speak. But I do have people who are still alive who've been doing this. We'll say dating back to 1990, and probably the best example I have of this is a guy who started with $234,000. He took out $2,000 a month until he hit 70, which was about 2010. And then he had to take out much larger amounts
because he was basically living on that at that point.
Well, then he became living on it. Prior to that, he was supplemental income.
Okay. Yep.
And then it became, he had to live on it. And because the size of the account had grown, his required minimum distribution had also grown up. So we figured out that he started with $235,000. That amount today is $1.4 million, and he's taken out about the same amount of money.
Well, that's good.
Now,
for
that's
him.
probably one of the better examples. I've had other examples where people have not done well, but most of that is because they've taken out more than the agreed upon amount. If the account went up and they were taking the income, and all of a sudden they needed a new boat. Well, the cost of a new boat
depends on your boat, but yeah,
is high.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's going to be high no matter what.
Where Andy's dad is going. I mean, I've seen some small boats out on the water there, or at least to me,
small boats.
You talking about Palm Beach?
I am talking about Palm Beach.
Palm Beach, I think the cheapest boat is probably in like the millions. So
yeah, I'm just talking. Yeah, just talking to me. It looks like a long runabout, but they've got 4 what I used to call Merc Cruiser engines on the back. So
yeah.
So each engine is about 250 horsepower, powering one of those boats. And my number one son, who loves boats, would point those out. Dad, how much that is worth? And I'm thinking, oh, that's a small boat. Can't be more than, with all those motors and everything, probably 50, maybe 100,000.
Oh.
And he starts scoffing at me. Dad, add a zero.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
And I said, to me, a boat is like, okay, I'm going to drive in a circle.
Yeah, me
Okay.
too.
This is like
Yeah.
watching paint
never
dry or
got it.
something. Skittle flushing.
Yeah, I just don't understand that. But for that kind of money, you can get a very, very nice house,
Yeah,
and
you can
you
get
know,
a house that looks like a boat.
there
you go.
there are numerous
If you need a
houses that
boat,
look like boats. But in any case, going back to this strategy, it works. It works very, very well as long as you don't take out more than the agreed upon amount. And and what I've got is real life experiences with people, and it's tended to work in a lot of
Mhm.
different markets. The biggest risk, of course, is you have a major sell-off and you decide, I'm going to sell everything, but still
Mhm.
give me the income. It doesn't work like
work.
that.
No.
But dating back, this has been a big week for the stock market, and I think primarily the big move up on Wednesday when the Dow jumped 1,400 Dow points after it was the fact that there was a decision,
Hmm.
did not have to wait.
Which surprised the hell out of me.
Yeah, surprised the hell out
yeah,
of
me too.
of a lot of people. I had said as late as Monday.
Well, technically, we still don't have all the results.
Well,
I think Nevada and Arizona still haven't gone in, have they?
that you guys are going to have to check on the
Let's see.
internet. I am not sure.
No, they still have not called theirs.
But they won't get enough.
No, it
votes
doesn't
to-
matter,
yeah.
but it's like, how long does it take?
Well,
It's been 4 days at this point, right? 3 days?
let's just say, look who's in charge.
Yeah.
Well, in any case, there was a decision on the presidency, and that was a big thing.
Mhm.
There's a lead, a pretty pronounced lead in the Senate.
Yes.
I think the House is the only thing
The House
that's
is up in the air, I think.
and that'll probably be fairly close.
Well, right now, the GOP has gained 2 seats. So, but there's still quite a few.
Well,
If the GOP gets 7 more, they'll have a majority. But the Democrats need 19 more to get a majority. So it's looking pretty red, but it's, you never know.
No, you don't know. But I think my point is, you had a lot of people even up to Monday who were selling in anticipation that volatility would increase after the election, and I was of that belief, and I raised cash in my clients' accounts, both for safety and for opportunity, under the belief that the market would move up almost into the election, because concerns were first about what the Fed is going to do with interest rates, and the probability is they would drop them another 25 basis points. Although I felt the Fed should not have done anything, but that's not my call.
Mhm.
And corporate earnings were doing pretty well, and I was especially pleased last Thursday with the result, or last Thursday night, with results. I'll say earnings results and even guidance of my 2 largest positions, Apple and Amazon, which proved to be very, I'll say, more positive than not. But okay, here's the volatility is going to increase after the election. There may not be a result known, not only for several days, but could be for weeks. So raise some cash, and once a result is known, then you could go back in with a lot more confidence. And there are probably a lot of people that did that even on Monday, because Monday this past week, the stock market was down. Tuesday started to move up, and Wednesday night, about 2:00, I noticed that the Dow futures were up at that point 1,300 points, because Trump at that point had 268 electoral votes and he just needed 270 to win. And that happened shortly thereafter. And at 2:30,
Yeah, it was pretty quick.
2:30 in the morning, he came out and spoke. I think he was down in Mar-a-Lago.
I believe so.
Yeah,
Yeah, makes
I
sense.
There was a lot of happiness there, and there was unhappiness
Yes, there was.
on the cast at CNN, because CNN was on at least one TV in our house. I happen to be watching a different channel.
You just do that thing where you have like 6 TVs all at different channels, and you have to.
No,
Pick out which one.
Yeah, exactly.
no, we had just two. One in the bedroom, one in the main room of the house. The SO was watching CNN primarily,
Okay.
and at 2:00, I said I've got to go into the bedroom, and I had CNBC on, so that's a business news
Mhm.
channel, and their coverage all night long was different, because they were what is the market's reaction
Okay.
to what is going on.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the SO says, my only interest in the election, or only thought, has to do with the economy and the stock market.
Mhm.
And I said, correcto mundo.
That's why we live in this
The only thing
this
that
palace we
matters.
live in.
We have a phone call. It would
Hello.
be Mike Bryant.
Hello.
Greetings.
How are things going
Greetings
today?
and salutations.
Anything big happened this week?
Dow 44,000, right?
Dow
There you go.
44,000 right now. I think that's pretty big.
It's probably the biggest thing that happened this week.
And they're giving away gas right now.
Giving away gas?
Oh yeah, it's have you seen gas prices?
It's like
In the last couple
270 in
days.
places. It's unheard of.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
269 in
Wow.
Lavella right now.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yep, it's crazy. And that's even with still the uncertainty, because we don't know the U.S. House yet,
Right.
and in Minnesota we don't even know what for sure if it's going to be a split 50-50 in the state house.
Haven't they called Minnesota?
Not on the state house yet. There's 2 recounts.
Oh, okay.
They've got one in St. Cloud and one in Shakopee.
Huh.
Okay.
But if it turns out the way it's looking, it's going to be a 50-50 split, and they're going to have to figure out how they're going to basically run things.
Okay.
That's going to be very interesting. 50-50 split?
Yeah.
Yep. And the last time it happened, which was in the 70s, the Republicans got the speaker and the Democrats got 1 or 2 of the top committee chairs. But Hortman has indicated that other states have done it differently. And so we're going to see this like negotiation that's going to go on. That's going to be fascinating unless somebody switches parties, which is always possible, that somebody will decide, because they'll get offered a committee chair. They'll switch parties so they can put one over the top.
Okay. In my simple mind, though, it seems like
Okay.
a 50-50 split would be ideal, because then you have to go
Yeah. Someone has
for
to reach
the,
over
for
the aisle.
the best.
Yep.
What is best for your constituents?
So basically, bipartisan stuff passes, but
exactly.
nothing else does.
Exactly.
Which, yeah, that's pretty good, I'd say.
Well, they have a budget to pass. And so, whether or not they can come up with a deal. And it's interesting because both sides have some legislatures that have been sent there to fight for their side no matter what, that they're not supposed
Yep.
to make a deal. And so, when you go in with that, sometimes it's really hard to make a deal. And other times you start, getting some common sense that's working. We'll have both female leaders, and between Hortman and the legislator from Cold Spring, I'm forgetting her name for the moment. We'll see how they're able to work together. And so there could be some things that come out of it that are good.
Well, I have a question. You've got female leaders, is what you made that point here.
Correct.
But I would, in listening to, we'll say CNN, since the SO has that on at a fairly high volume in my house. The commentators on CNN continue to say that men did not and would not vote for a female, that men
That's
are
true.
misogynists and they're not voting for women, and they don't like to be around strong women at that. So how did these women get elected, number one, and number two, get leadership positions? Now, you do understand I'm being a little facetious here.
Oh, I understand. I think the big issue with the commentary is that, whether or not we're going to be able to get a female president. And the more likelihood is they're going to be VP and somebody's going to die, and that's what's going to make them president. It seems clear that Latino men and a majority of African Americans seem to shift when it's a female at the top of the ticket. The Democrats probably would have had a better shot with O'Rourke for governor if Clinton wasn't on the ticket. And this time, Allard might have beat Cruz if Harris wasn't on the ticket. But what's happened locally is, we've got a majority of women on the Minnesota Supreme Court. We've got, women leading the House in both parties. So there's been this, Harris was what is probably going to go and run for governor of California. They do get votes, but that last step of getting to the presidency just seems to be, it's still too hard right at the moment. And it's primarily those two constituencies that really, really have been tough on women as far as candidates go.
Okay. No, I just to interrupt, because something else that I did read was that older white women did not come out in droves for we'll say for Harris.
Yeah, well, none of her potential voters came out in droves.
That's true.
She's so underperformed versus Biden. It's incredible. And there's a number of things that went on there. Trump's people voted. And the other thing is, I think Trump kind of became the hip vote for young white males. It was kind of like a Jesse Ventura vote. The more they heard about he was a bad guy, and the more he was on Joe Rogan, and the more he danced in South Dakota, the more they're like, let's vote for that guy because he's cool.
Yeah.
And Joe Biden was the only one who was ever able to beat Trump. He beat all the Republicans. He beat all the Republicans the second time. He's beaten them back. He's beaten, Harris. He beat Clinton. He's tough to beat. And, and his people vote. And that's what happened.
Okay. My question on the whole thing was, if they had two strong female candidates, in what I had seen and watched, Harris didn't have any real policies of her own. She just kind of would follow Joe Biden's lead and keep everything kind of the status quo. And I think people wanted to see a change from what has been going on for the last 3 years. And when Trump beat Clinton, I don't know that, you're throwing around words like deplorables and, garbage and weird, and you're making people mad.
Yeah. The divisiveness is a huge mistake. And I'm hoping next election cycle, they're going to stop with it, because all it does is cause one side to be crushed and, unhappy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The hard thing about calling somebody a Nazi or calling people un-American or a threat to democracy is it hardens his support, because people are like, well, they're calling me a deplorable.
Yep.
They're calling me a Nazi or a racist. I think a lot of it did come down to he became the Jesse Ventura vote for a lot of young white males. He won Penn State. He won Iowa State. He won these places that they didn't think were going to go the way they did. The thing I really disliked, I thought the whole strategy of having almost a daily endorsement of a former Republican was going to be very positive. What was hard about it was all of them, every time they came out, they're like, I'm not voting for Donald Trump. I voted for him in the past. I'm not voting for Donald Trump because he's a Nazi. I'm not voting him because he's bad for the democracy. And instead of saying I'm for Harris because of this, or this is what I like about Harris, it was a very negative way to do it, and people don't like that. As far as policy goes, it's very tough for a VP to run against the sitting president because that's their administration, and they get painted with, you've had your chance to do things, why haven't you done it? They tried to pass a very conservative, very, very good immigration bill. That was stopped because Trump didn't want them to get credit for it. My bet is that bill, or some version of that bill, is the one that gets passed a very short time after he becomes president.
Well,
Okay.
the question I have just on that particular bill.
Yeah.
When did that come out?
Oh, I would say somewhere during the summer, I think, is when they were.
Okay,
they
so
were trying to get that passed.
so I think it was February 2024.
Yeah, that
Okay,
would-
so
that would
here
be
comes
right,
this
yeah.
this immigration bill right before the election.
Yeah.
And the question that I had when that bill came out is, where was that in 2023 or 2022 or even 2021?
hmm
And I'm one of these people. If you want to come to the United States, come on in legally, of course. Learn to speak the language, and get a job. And most of the people are coming here for a job, for a better way of life, and I think really do want to become Americans. So figure out a way to get them to be Americans.
Sure. Well,
But that's
there's
just me.
Yeah, I think that's where a lot of Americans are. But see, there's a conflict. Okay, on the one hand, you've got the whole discussion of let's throw everybody who's illegal out because they're here illegally, and the problem is they run our farms, they run our factories, and so there's a lot of major Republican donors who are absolutely in support of Trump, 100%, but their companies run on immigrants. And
Yep.
for the most part,
Well, when you say they run on immigrants, it's immigrants, but not necessarily illegal immigrants.
a lot of them are. A lot of the
A lot of
farm
them,
workers are
especially
illegal
down south. Yes,
Yeah, in
there
the
are
south- in the
tons of
south,
them.
yes.
Are, yeah.
And so they're in a big conflict because it's like, well, yeah, I want to change it, but I can't lose all my business. And so that's why, I expect the next bill, the idea of making a bunch of people citizens is going to be a big part of it because those guys need their workers. Now, the problem they've also got too is if they become citizens, they got to pay them differently. They got to
Yep.
pay them correctly. And how that's all going to work is going to be even more complicated economically.
Yeah, the issue of being able to pay illegal immigrants pennies is a big part of the reason why this issue hasn't been solved, because there's a lot of people out there who make a lot of profit off of that whole industry.
I just remember growing up where I did in New Jersey. There were what was known as migrant laborers. So I'm not, they came into the United States
Yeah.
during, we'll say, picking season.
You talking about the Chinese in the 18th century?
No, this is I was talking about
Migrant workers.
yeah, Spanish speakers. They typically would come up to work at some of the farms. I mean, it'd be pretty much the same people coming up every summer.
Mm-hmm.
To work at the farms. They were provided housing on the farms, and pay for doing the picking, and a lot of and doing that type of manual labor. One, it's very very tough, arduous,
Mhm.
and there are a lot of other people who don't want to do that work.
Right. And I will say I have no problem with people coming into the country. Just do it properly.
Mm-hmm.
Write your name, state who you are, prove who you are, and come in. Have a great life, make a living, earn a living.
We're all
that
on the
stuff.
same
Yeah.
page like that.
Yeah.
I go a little further. Swear allegiance to the country.
I'm good with that.
Learn to speak English.
Yeah.
Because if you learn to speak the language, we'll say the native language, that gives you a better shot at longer term success.
The fall of every civilization is dealt with loss of language.
That is very true.
So
I would never move to a country without becoming at least like conversational. first.
Exactly.
I would hate it.
Yep.
Like imagine moving to like Japan and not knowing any Japanese.
That would not
You-
be good.
You'd basically just have to sit at home all day because it's like you can't talk to anyone. You can't
Yep.
really do anything.
Yep.
And
It would
imagine watching
No.
baseball and you can't understand what the commentator is saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I don't watch baseball.
Yeah. When I was on
In
was on-
Japanese
in
baseball.
English or Japanese.
In English, you can't understand what somebody is saying.
Wait a minute, 4 bases. When did they add that last one?
when I was on the
The,
job, I used Google Translate quite often.
Yeah.
Wow.
You know, it
Yeah, they had
was-
that conversation mode or whatever.
Yeah, where it's like I stopped you because you were
Mhm.
going 48 in a 35-mile-per-hour zone.
Mm-hmm.
That's
This
it.
Is, this is
That's
like
why you stopped them.
All stop.
48 and a 35.
10 miles
zone?
an hour over the speed limit in a residential area.
Yeah.
You bet I'm stopping.
Residential,
stopping
13
a
miles
car.
an hour
Oh,
over.
yeah.
That's not good.
You bet I am.
Actually, that reminds me. We had a question for Dave.
Uh-oh.
We were driving home from the zoo.
Mm-hmm.
So, it was like a 3-week journey or so. And you know how in certain areas they'll have it set up so there's like 2 residential neighborhoods and then there's kind of a highway
Mhm.
that they're sandwiching.
Yep.
So the highway isn't really in a residential area,
Right.
but it also kind of is.
Kind of a slash rural or industrial.
Yeah, kind of like that.
Yep.
So this one family was trying to cross the highway. It was like, I think it was a 2-lane highway.
Mhm.
I've got to go.
Oh, okay.
Guys, have a great day.
See you, Mike.
Yeah, we'll
Take
see
it easy.
you next week. They were trying to cross the highway, but they weren't at a crosswalk. What is the protocol there? Should you stop or should you avoid stopping or?
If they're brave enough to actually step into the street, you better stop.
Well, yeah, but I mean, they were at a sidewalk and they were
Mhm.
clearly looking to cross,
Mm-hmm.
and it was at an area like right before a roundabout, so we were only going
Okay.
maybe 30.
Yep.
So I could have, but they weren't at the roundabout and they weren't anywhere near a crosswalk. So I was
Okay.
like, if I stop now, then I'm just holding up traffic.
Yeah. Technically, you should, in that situation, stop for them.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
So you
Because once they show an interest in crossing the street, that is when you should stop.
Huh.
However, if you did not stop or did stop, like you say, it's kind of a catch-22. They're risking hitting a pedestrian or
Yeah.
impeding the flow of traffic. So it's
Huh.
kind of that's a catch-22
Yeah, I
spot, but
suppose so.
definitely, I guess in the future, try to stop for them. I mean,
Well, all right then.
because if they show any interest in crossing the street, it becomes their right, I guess, at that point,
Huh.
especially in a crosswalk.
Well, yeah, a
But,
crosswalk. Yeah, you should always.
Yep.
Obviously.
Yep.
I just wonder because, like, I've heard stories about people stopping on highways for things and then they get rear-ended, but then it's their fault because you're not supposed to stop on a highway.
Well, that's just it. I mean, I can't tell you the number of times I've seen white women stop in the middle of the street to
For an
save
animal?
a
Yep.
dog
Yep.
or a squirrel that had been run over. It's like,
Uh-huh.
would you knock it off? You're doing more harm than good. I gotta save the squirrel.
You can pull over if you really want
yeah,
to,
but they don't. They just stop right there.
Yeah. And if a squirrel's been hit by a car, it's not coming out of it
No.
alive. Sorry.
No.
They're fragile
100%.
little animals. Yeah. And a
Yep.
car is not.
That and being by the lake and the geese.
Oh,
That-
the geese.
oh
make
my
a
gosh.
They
mess.
don't give a crap.
If there was, oh my God, there's a goose with a wounded wing. It says as long as it can put food in its mouth, it's going to live.
That's
Trust
true.
me.
Yeah. There's a reason they flock, and there's a reason they're so aggressive.
Oh,
No one wants
God.
to go anywhere near a goose flock. Even most dogs know better.
Yep.
And they also eat grass, which helps.
Yep.
You don't need to be able to do a whole lot to eat grass. Sometimes makes you jealous, doesn't it? So I wish I could just eat the ground. Like, wouldn't that be
gosh.
convenient? What if the ground was made out of like hamburger? That's how a goose lives.
I could do that.
Yeah, I'm going.
Bury
Greg,
my face in the ground and eat hamburger all day.
Yeah,
Oh
you
yeah.
See, that's how grass eaters live.
Oh my goodness.
They got the good life. We have to hunt for our food and grow it like losers.
There you go.
I thought all I had to do was, go over to Cove, sit down,
Yeah.
the menu, and the food shows up.
You still have to pay for it though. You still pay for anything.
Oh God.
I've never seen a goose with $1. I have seen a goose with a bill though.
Then I'm bumped. There we go.
I don't know. Do geese have bills or do they have beaks?
They have bills.
I don't know what the difference
It's a
is.
bill. A beak is more the
Pointy.
pointy.
Yeah.
Bills are the flat, rounded.
Oh gosh, that's funny.
Have you
Oh.
ever eaten a Canada goose?
I have not. I have not, but I've heard that they're rather greasy.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. That's why people, because there's infinity of them
Yep.
in Minnesota.
And
if
I
you have
don't-
any poverty, you could
I
just get
don't
one of them.
know that I'd want to eat something that has eaten the crap that's on the ground in the
That's
cities.
true. Yes,
No.
not a city goose. It's like why people don't eat raccoon. Think about
Although in the country,
that.
they do.
Yeah, they do. But think about what a city raccoon eats.
Yeah, exactly.
Yikes.
Very true.
That's probably why they're greasy.
That could be because they're eating McDonald's wrappers all day. They're high in soybean oil. All right, I think we've come to the end of our show here. I was gonna say we're gonna be here all week. It's almost 10:50. I guess we'll just be here until tomorrow morning.
Be here tomorrow morning. Okay.
But we will be back on Monday. Josh, I don't know if you've heard, but they'll be back. They'll be in Florida by tomorrow. So
Oh, that's very nice. The
They'll be
next
back
time
on
I'm
the show.
down in Florida, I'll give them a call, take my mother and cousin, and meet them
Mhm.
at one of our favorite restaurants that's right on the Intercoastal, so you can see the boats go up and down.
which would that be?
Have to get the name of it again.
Just that one good place.
No,
That
it's just
one-
There's a lot of restaurants.
there's a
in that
lot
area,
of restaurants that are on the Intercoastal.
and half of them close the next time you go down there.
No, I think this place has been open for a while. Your parents liked it, and my mother and cousin love it.
Oh yeah.
So,
Although I mean that area you can't really get away with bad food. So
True.
no, it's the real good fish. The only place, well, there are a few places I've been in. I'll say in. Actually, there was one place in Boston that I went to called the No Name Fish House.
is
and
it
it was-
associated with No Name Steaks or?
No, this place was just.
Huh.
You walked in, they had chalkboard up behind the counter. That's here's what was changing. Here's the price.
Yeah, very hip.
Long tables. You ordered. You got your number, and it was like fish right off the whatever the fresh catch was,
Yeah.
because
Mhm.
their back door, a boat pulls up,
Yep.
lets out. Oh, here's what we've got today.
Mhm.
And food, how would you like your fish? You want it grilled, blackened, fried, deep fried? Here it is.
Yep.
Great place.
Yeah.
No, it's
I'm sure there's places like that down down along the intercoastal in
Seafood
Florida.
in Florida, yeah, along the coast is can't be beat. It's one reason I don't eat that much seafood up in Minnesota.
And it's pretty close. Oh, we're now just because of realized we're in November. It's stone crab season
Ooh, good
starting.
stuff.
And
But
those
expensive.
are really good.
Real expensive.
Really good.
All right, everyone, start saving up for some crab.
guy.
Might be able to afford one by Christmas.
Talk to Josh about saving up for
yeah,
crab.
there you
That's
go.
it.
If you need
There's
some
your
money
plug,
to
Josh.
buy some
Thank
crab,
you very much, Super Dave.
why not call Josh Arnold? Not sugarcoated advice.
952-925-5608.
There you go.
And as for the rest of you, we will see you back on Monday.
Thank you.
Bye.
Reminds me of this one was before. Every time I hear the sing, reminds me how you talking.